Before we get into this video, I want to remind all you guys that I am hosting a $100 speed duel tournament on my Discord. My Discord is linked down in the description below. You guys can head over there. You guys can head over to the $100 tournament chat or text channel, and all the information will be lined out there. We currently have 15 participants out of our hoped for 30. And as long as we do hit 20 participants, we will have the original prize pool, and everything's going to run just as the way it was supposed to. But regardless of how many participants we do hit, the tournament will be going ahead April 12th. That'll be the start date, and at 3 p.m. EST, I will close registration to the tournament. So if this does intrigue you in any way, shape, or form, check out the description down below and head on over to my Discord. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is curseof and welcome back to another video. Today we are here for a brand new Yu-Gi-Oh discussion. Today we're going to be talking about how to beat Warrior Moth. So if you guys have seen my tier list video, and if you haven't seen my tier list video, it will be linked in the card over here, right there. You guys can go check that out. But I did come to the conclusion in that video that Warrior Moth or Warrior Parasite is the tier 1 best deck of this current format. Since I do have a $100 tournament coming up, I'm going to talk to you guys about ways that you can counter this strategy and actually have a higher likelihood of beating this deck. Real quickly, I just want to remind you guys to hit that like button if you have been enjoying my content and this video, and also subscribe. I put a lot of work into these videos, put a lot of time and effort into these videos, and you guys hitting that subscribe button or hitting that like button increases my motivation to keep on doing what I'm doing, so it's greatly appreciated. So the first thing we're going to talk about with this deck is the issue that this deck actually poses for a lot of decks beyond just the skill, and that's actually the board that it can make. So in a going second scenario, or even in a scenario where your opponent's already set up a monster, this deck basically will consistently have a board of 1 to 2 moths and a Gear Fiend or Command Knight sitting on the field with back row. This is actually a very hard board for a lot of decks to get through, considering you have a 3500 beater, the strongest non-fusion beater in the game, and they run cards like Floodgate Trap Hole and like Windstorm to stop your attacks, and along with that, they have a Gear Fiend, which for non-tribute monsters, it's also the highest attack beater and counters an opposing Parasite strategy. So they make a very strong board that actually a lot of decks in the current format struggle very heavily to beat, and this is why this deck is so good. Along with that, they obviously have their Parasite Paranoid and their Cocoon of Ultra Evolution to remove any problematic cards that you summon with their skill and Parasite, and there's not much you can really do to stop it. But there are some ways to help you out against this deck, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So before we start getting into more specific tech cards that you can actually run in a deck to help counter the strategy, I want to talk about one deck that basically its main purpose and the reason that it even sees a lot of success in play is because of the fact that Parasite Paranoid and Moth-Warriors and Gravekeeper Moth and all those decks are so prevalent. It's the reason that it sees any play. I think I already said that, but that's actually the Spellproof Armor machine deck. So Spellproof Armor is a skill card, a Bandit Keith skill that actually shuts down all spell cards that target your normal machine monsters. And since when Parasite Paranoid is equipped to a monster, it is considered as a equipped spell, that means your machine monsters like your Pendulum Machine or your Launcher Spider don't actually become insect monsters, so your opponent can't use the Cocoon of Ultra Evolution to tribute your monsters to summon their moth. Because of that, this deck has actually seen a lot of success in the current format, as it basically counters the tier 1 strategy in the current meta, and that splashable engine. Although this strategy might not work super well against other decks, like say Relinquished or your Viral Despair, it does phenomenally against Moth, and because of that, it sees a lot of play and it sees a lot of success. So if you're looking for a deck to play, a fun deck that can help you beat Moth and it isn't stall, honestly, Spellproof Armor is a phenomenal option to go with. While we are on the topic of the Spellproof Armor deck, there's actually another card that you can run in the Spellproof Armor deck. There's a few other decks can be run in, but Spellproof Armor is the most prevalent one, and that card is Heatwave. So you actually don't see Heatwave very much in the current meta, but it's a very, very powerful card, especially going into the Moth matchup. If you are running a deck with normal monsters, even if it's just a few or a lot, maybe you're running a stall strategy that does a lot of defensive play, there's really no reason to not try and even side in Heatwave. It's just a good overall card for the majority of the decks in the current meta, as your opponent will be able to summon things like their Despair from the Dark, or mainly their Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, as Heatwave states that your opponent or yourself can't normal or special summon effect monsters until your following turn. So it shuts down all effect monster summons for 2 turns, leaving your opponent only with the ability to set these monsters. That means no Gear Fiend. That means even if they do equip Parasite Paranoid, they cannot tribute your monster for that turn, and it gives you a chance to stop them and potentially make some plays yourself. So very good card to counter the strategy, and a very good card to use in Spellproof Armor to even slow down your opponent's deck even more. Not necessarily need it in Spellproof Armor for stopping Moth, but can't stop them from going to Gear Fiends, Command Knights, or if Gravekeepers, Recruiters, stuff like that. Now that we put a little bit of focus on a deck that's basically tailor-made to beat Parasite Paranoid and Warrior Moth, Creeper Moth, all the Moth decks, we're going to start talking about more like side deck cards or even some tech cards to run in your main deck to use to get through this strategy. Beat these Moth decks and stop them from summoning their Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. So, the first card and the most obvious card to use is Eradicating Aerosol. So, Eradicating Aerosol is basically a spell card that just says destroy all insect monsters on the field. So obviously, it's a very easy option to take on your opponent's decks, to take out their moths, as you just play this and you wipe out, you know, any Perfectly Ultimate Great Moths they have, or if they're running more insect monsters, you wipe out any of them. So it's a very easy counter to Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. It doesn't stop Parasite Paranoid removing your monster from the field, but if your deck does struggle to get over Moth, like if you're playing a Blue Eyes deck, for example, or maybe you're playing the Machine deck and they somehow get Moth out, maybe they just destroy their Parasite Paranoid and summon it from the hand, and you don't want to run Order to Charge, then Eradicating Aerosol is a fantastic card to put in the side deck or even tech in your main deck to take out Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. So the next card I'm going to talk about is Ready for Intercepting. So Ready for Intercepting is obviously a card that allows you to flip Warrior and Spellcaster monsters into face-down defense position. So obviously if you're playing something like Heavy Metal Raiders or Viral Despair, this card's not going to do too much for you. But if you're playing something like Relinquished or Dark Magician or Gravekeepers, this card is actually a pretty big asset to go against the Parasite strategy. So you might be thinking, why is this card so good to go against Parasite? Well, if you're put in a situation where you do have to go first, and they're looking to react and get their Parasite Cocoon combo off, and you do have the ability, you do have a Ready for Intercept set for that turn, and you can summon, say, your, I don't know, maybe you just summon a Gravekeeper Ambusher. Summon, set Ready for Intercepting. During their turn, they activate their Parasite Paranoid, target your Ambusher, trying to equip their Parasite Paranoid to it. Well, if you flip Ready for Intercepting, set your Gravekeeper Ambusher, when your opponent's Parasite tries to resolve, they no longer have their target, so they can't equip, they go to the graveyard. Since they never became an equip card, they also don't get their special summon from hand effect. So this allows you to actually play around your opponent using the skill to get out Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, or even if they already have used the skill and they're just trying to get out one from their hand, this also stops them. Along with that, it forces them to use up their Parasite Paranoids. So if this scenario did happen, they've officially gone through one of their Parasite Paranoids, and they're not running Recursion to get it back, or they just choose not to shuffle it in with their skill, well, you got rid of one of their cards, and you have one less Parasite to worry about. can be very big depending on how large of an engine they've splashed in their deck. Now, if you are playing one of the decks that I did mention before, like Heavy Metal Raiders, or, I don't know, Blue Eyes, say, for example, and you're like, well, I also want to have this ability. I'm not saying you should do this in Blue Eyes, probably not the best idea, but you might be like, well, I want to have this ability, but Ready for Intercepting is not going to work for my deck. Maybe not, but there is an alternative. I don't think of it as good of an option as Ready for Intercepting, but still a good card to use, and that is Interdimensional Matter Transporter. This card basically will have the same sort of scenario as Ready for Intercepting would, versus the activate Parasite Paranoid from hand, flip your Interdimensional, banish your monster till the end phase, they lose their target, Parasite goes to grave without becoming an equip spell. The difference is, this interaction leaves your field wide open, allowing your opponent to actually attack you directly if they have their Gear Fiend, say, for example, and you just took 1800 for, sure, to avoid a Moth, to get a Parasite in the grave, but their skill still does have the ability to be used later, so this can definitely pose some bigger issues than using Ready for Intercepting, which just sets your monster and still protects your life points for that turn. Now, a big issue with Ready for Intercepting and Interdimensional Matter Transporter is that, yes, they're good in the Parasite matchup, but in a lot of other matchups, they lack a lot. A lot of solo decks these days don't play Mask to do the 500 burn. Maybe you could avoid, say, their Spellbinding Circle, but if they have big bodies like Despair from the Dark or a really big King of the Skull Servants, then just because you allow your monsters to attack, if you're not playing your own Moth, say, for example, or something big enough to continue the assault, it really doesn't do too much for you. So they're good in the Moth matchup, but they lack in a lot of other circumstances. So another card I want to talk about that's very, very good for going up against the Moth deck is Gear Fiend the Iron Knight. So, because of Gear Fiend's ability, any equipped cards that are equipped to him are automatically destroyed. This means your opponent is never given an opportunity to use their skill's effect while you have just a Gear Fiend or multiple Gear Fiends on your field. They might be able to summon a perfectly ultimate Great Moth from your hand, but those ones are susceptible to Floodgate trap holes, say, for example. So they actually never get an opportunity to use your skill. And compared to a lot of the other cards mentioned before, Gear Fiend is not a card that is going to show struggle against a lot of other decks. I mean, it's bigger attack than every other monster in the Spellproof Armor build. It has effects that can stop your opponent's Spellbinding Circle in a stall matchup, or if they do play Mask, stop that. You don't have to worry about removing it from the field and leaving yourself open, or putting in defense and leaving it susceptible for destruction. And overall, it's just a very powerful card, being an 1800 body, the strongest non-tribute body in the game. So if you have room for it, and it doesn't hinder your deck running a warrior monster, it's really not a bad option to run this card in the deck. So the next card I want to talk about is a trap card that actually grew in popularity a lot due to the Moth strategy. This card being the Forceful Checkpoint. The reason the Forceful Checkpoint became so popular is because if you do T-set or leave your life points open and your opponent can't target one of your monsters with their Parasite Paranoid, so they attack that turn, leave it in their hand, and you flip the Forceful Checkpoint, you can actually rip their Parasite Paranoid from their hand as well, negating your opponent's attack. Because Parasite Paranoid exists along with Sphere Karibo, this card actually sees a lot more play, and it's good in just a lot of matchups in general, because if your opponent just has a monster in their hand, maybe they have a Gravekeeper's Oracle in a Gravekeeper matchup, or they have Relinquish they can't summon in a Relinquish matchup. Well, first off, you can rip cards from their hand, which gives you a little bit more control, but you also have insight into what deck they're playing and what cards they're running, as you get to actually view your opponent's hand while activating this card. So not only does it stop parasites, it also stops other decks from summoning boss monsters potentially, and gives you insight into their deck. Overall, if you're looking for a very, very good strategy to stop Moth, this is a big one to run. So Ready for Intercepting and Interdimensional was avoiding Parasite. Gear Fiend was avoiding Parasite. The Forceful Checkpoint was avoiding Parasite. Eradicating Aerosol was avoiding Moth. Well, now we have another option for avoiding Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, this option being Yomi Ship. You see Yomi Ship run in the side deck for a lot of decks who might struggle with the Moth matchup. Yomi Ship, basically, it's fodder, it gets destroyed, and you get to pop your opponent's monster that destroyed it. So if your opponent's only chilling on a Moth, say for example, or even if they do get a bit reckless and attack with Moth instead of, say, Gear Fiend for example, well then you have your Yomi Ship, which is just going to pop their Moth. Now you no longer have to deal with that card, at least for the time being. Because of this card actually sees a lot of side deck play, but I haven't seen it too much in the main deck. It is a good option to get over Parasite, and it also has a little bit more application because it can also get over other boss monsters that your opponent may be running. But it does lose some playability in the fact that you can't choose what monster it destroys. It has to be the one that ran it over. So if your opponent knows you're running Yomi Ship, they might try to play around that a bit. So we obviously put a lot of focus into the Parasite Moth engine, trying to avoid that card and that strategy and that combo. Now we're going to put a little bit less emphasis on that and just on the Moth-Warrior deck as a whole. So the next card to mention is Floodgate, arguably the best trap card in the current format. So although Floodgate Trap Hole cannot hit your opponent's Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth when it's summoned from the skill, if it's not summoned from the skill, you can Floodgate it. If they summon their Gear Fiend, you can Floodgate it. So sure, there's only one monster it can't hit in that matchup, but it's very good against all other monsters that your opponent does summon. Along with that, it's also good in, well, basically every other matchup. Your opponent is playing a Spellproof Armor deck, summons a Pendulum Machine, Floodgate it. Opponent's playing Relinquish, summons Relinquished, Floodgate it. Your opponent's playing Gravekeepers, summons Oracle, Floodgate it. It's good against this matchup, and it's good against basically every deck. Just a good staple card to run. Why not run it, if you ever? As you guys can see in a sample deck list somewhere, this deck actually runs a lot of trap cards. Because of this fact, it's really good to run some back row hate going up against this deck. Whether you're side decking it or main decking it, having back row hate like Dust Tornado or Night Beam is really good to hit your opponent's Floodgates, your opponent's Forceful Checkpoints, your opponent's Windstorms, whatever they may be running, so you don't have to worry about running into these back row cards. Finally, one more card that's pretty decent to run against this matchup, assuming that they're running back row hate themselves, is Waking the Dragons. So Waking the Dragons is the only really viable option that you're going to summon a monster bigger than Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. Along with that, if you do get out, say for example, your Arcana Knight Joker, not only do you have a body bigger than Moth, but you also have negation for your opponent's Parasite Paranoids. So I actually got this interaction incorrect in my card interactions. You need to know video, so I'm going to clear this up now. If your opponent does attempt to equip a Parasite Paranoid to your Arcana Knight Joker and you negate its effect, so it does still hit the graveyard. It still was activated, it still was attempted, you negated it, hits the graveyard, does not stay in your opponent's hand. There we go. That's cleared up. There's also a few other card interactions I got wrong, but I do plan on having another video like that soon, and I'll clear up everything in that video. So that's going to conclude this video on how to beat Moth-Warrior. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, that like button's still down there, waiting for you guys to hit them, and that subscribe button's also chilling. Notification bell is also an option if you want to get notified every time a new video comes out. Apologize for missing last upload. Don't have an excuse. Sorry. But anyway, I'll catch you guys in 2 more days for another video. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Don't forget to check out my Discord. Peace out.